The courthouse doors were closing when Ethan heard a little girl scream behind the parking lot fence. He stopped so hard his worn sneaker twisted sideways on the concrete. Across the street, the County Family Services building stood right where it was supposed to be, its glass doors bright in the late afternoon light, a place he had stared at for 2 straight bus rides with his stomach tied in knots. Inside, at 4 o'clock sharp, a couple from Des Moines was supposed to meet him. His first real adoption meeting. His only chance, as far as he knew, to stop sleeping in temporary beds and carrying his life in a trash bag that cut into his hand. But the scream came again. Not a tantrum. Not playful. Thin, sharp, terrified. Ethan turned toward the chain-link fence behind a row of parked trucks. He was 13, small for his age, and too used to deciding in 1 second whether a sound meant danger or trouble he should stay out of. This time, he didn't think. He ran. The fence bordered a cracked service lane behind a biker bar and repair garage, the kind of place his group home staff would have called none of your business. Through the metal slats, Ethan saw a little blonde girl in a pink t-shirt on the ground beside a black motorcycle tipped half off its kickstand. A man in a gray hoodie had one hand clamped around her upper arm. She was kicking at him with glitter sneakers and trying to crawl backward, her face twisted in panic. 20 feet away, another man was yanking open hard saddlebags on 3 parked bikes, cursing under his breath. Ethan didn't know whose child she was. He didn't know who the men were. He only knew the girl was alone, scared, and being dragged. He shoved through the half-latched side gate. "Hey!" Both men snapped toward him. The one holding the girl sneered. "Beat it." The girl saw Ethan and cried out. "He took my dad's phone." That changed everything. This wasn't random. They weren't just roughing her up. They were stealing, and she knew it. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. He glanced once toward the courthouse clock above the county building across the street. 3:56. If he ran now, maybe he could still make it. The man in the hoodie tightened his grip on the girl and started pulling her toward a dented pickup idling near the alley mouth. Ethan moved. He grabbed a loose metal trash can lid from beside the gate and hurled it as hard as he could. It clanged off the pickup's hood with a violent crash that echoed through the alley. The driver jerked, cursing. The man at the saddlebag spun around. "Kid." Ethan was already charging the girl. He slammed his shoulder into the man's side with every pound he had. It wasn't enough to knock the man down clean, but it was enough to break his hold. The little girl dropped free, stumbling hard onto her palms. "Run!" Ethan shouted. Instead of freezing, she obeyed. She scrambled behind the fallen motorcycle and ducked low. The second man lunged for Ethan. Ethan snatched a fist-sized wrench off the concrete near an open toolbox and swung wildly. He didn't hit the man, but the wrench connected with the bike frame in a spark-spitting crack that made both thieves flinch. That 1 second was enough for the girl to scream at the top of her lungs, "Dad!" The alley answered with sound before it answered with people. A door banged open inside the garage. Boots pounded. Engines that had been silent a moment earlier started coughing awake deeper in the lot. The man in the hoodie recovered first. He backhanded Ethan across the face, so hard white light burst in his vision. Ethan fell against the motorcycle, pain exploding through his cheekbone. The thief snatched something black from the ground, probably the phone the girl had shouted about, then grabbed for her again. But this time Ethan saw it coming. Pain made the parking lot tilt for half a second, but instinct moved faster than fear. Instead of covering his face, Ethan drove both hands into the man's wrist just as those fingers closed around Lily's coat sleeve. The stolen phone skidded across the oil-stained pavement, bouncing under the rear tire of a parked truck. Lily twisted free with a sharp cry and stumbled backward, but she did not freeze. She snatched up a loose length of chain lying beside a toolbox near the service bay and swung it hard at the thief's forearm. The blow was wild, more courage than aim, but it worked. Metal cracked against bone. The man cursed and let go. That single second changed the balance. Before either thief could recover, one of the motorcycles roared forward from the dark end of the lot, headlight blasting white across the scene. The beam hit Ethan full in the face, then swung wide, catching the 2 men as they ran. For an instant their shadows stretched long and monstrous over the cinder block wall. Then the bike cut across their path. Leather. Chrome. A hard shape behind the bars. Rex. He did not come flying in reckless. He came in controlled, precise, the front tire stopping inches from one thief's knees. The man in the hoodie stumbled backward, swore, and bolted toward the alley between the repair shop and the fence. His partner went the other way, limping, clutching his arm. More engines thundered alive behind Rex, not charging yet, just rising together in a low warning growl that made the whole lot feel suddenly owned. Lily ran to the fallen phone and grabbed it with both hands like it was breathing for her. "Don't let them get away," she shouted, voice shaking and furious at once. Rex looked at her, then at Ethan, then at the alley. It was Lily who made the choice. She pointed with a trembling hand toward the man in the hoodie. That one took it. He knew what he was grabbing. Rex's eyes narrowed. This was no random smash and run. The thief had gone for the phone first, then for the girl. That changed everything. He jerked his chin once toward two of the men rolling up behind him. No wasted words. One peeled off toward the street exit. Another cut around the side of the building toward the alley mouth. Ethan pressed one hand to his face and tasted blood in his mouth. His cheek was already swelling. He should have stepped back. He should have let the grown men take over. Instead, he looked at Lily and saw that she was trying not to cry. "You okay?" he asked. She swallowed hard and nodded, but her hand was clamped so tightly around the phone her knuckles had gone white. Rex swung off the motorcycle. Up close, he seemed even larger, not just in size but in presence, a man the night itself made room for. His gaze dropped to Ethan's split lip, then to the frayed sleeve of the boy's jacket, then to the thin sneakers planted on freezing asphalt. "You jumped in for her," Rex said. It was not praise. It was recognition. Ethan shrugged, though the movement hurt. They were taking her. Lily turned toward Rex, breathing fast. "He stopped them." "He did. They would have dragged me if he didn't." The words landed harder than the engines. For the first time, Rex really studied Ethan, not as some kid hanging around a parking lot, but as someone who had made a choice when it counted. Ethan saw something shift in the man's face. Not softness exactly, more like attention sharpened by respect. A shout came from the alley side of the building. One of the thieves had tried to climb the chain-link fence and failed. Another one of Rex's men had him pinned flat against the metal, one arm twisted behind his back. The man in the hoodie was gone for the moment, vanished into the dark beyond the neighboring lot. Rex did not move toward the captured thief right away. Cold air rolled through the lot, carrying the stink of wet asphalt, gasoline, and old fryer grease from the diner next door. Red and blue lights had not arrived yet. What filled the silence instead was Lily's uneven breathing against Ethan's shoulder and the hard, measured voice of Rex telling one of the hells to call it in. Only then did Ethan remember the time. The thought hit harder than the punch. His whole body went still. He pulled back just enough to see the cracked face of the convenience store window, where a faded beer sign glowed above a lottery poster. Beneath it, a cheap wall clock hung crooked near the register. 7:23. For one blank second, he did not understand what he was looking at. Then everything inside him dropped. The meeting. Lily was still clutching the front of his coat. Her small fingers balled tight in the fabric, but his eyes stayed on that clock as if staring hard enough might shove the hands backward. He had needed to be across town by 7. Not walking in at 7. Not calling around 7. Sitting there, on time, with his papers, with his only clean shirt buttoned all the way up, proving to a stranger that he was serious and stable and worth choosing. Instead, he was here, blood drying at the corner of his mouth. Rex followed his gaze without a word. "You got somewhere to be?" Ethan swallowed. His throat felt scraped raw. "I did." The answer came out flat, almost embarrassed, which somehow made it worse. He eased Lily toward Rex, careful not to startle her. She resisted for half a second, arms tightening around him before Rex crouched and opened one arm. "It's okay, Lil," Rex said quietly. Only after she let go did Ethan feel how badly his hands were shaking. He wiped one across his jeans, then reached into his pocket for the folded paper he had checked 6 times that afternoon. It was bent now, damp with sweat, one corner torn. The address of the family services office blurred under a smear of blood from his knuckle. Rex looked at the paper, then at Ethan's face. "What meeting?" Ethan hesitated. The captured thief was cursing by the fence. One of the hells barked back at him. Somewhere in the distance, a siren finally woke up and started heading their way. None of it mattered as much as the shame pressing up his neck. "Adoption intake," he said. Rex did not speak. Ethan gave a small, hopeless shrug, like the truth needed apologizing for. "They said if I missed the slot, They'd mark me non-compliant and move on. I tried to leave after my shift. Bus broke down 2 blocks over. I cut through here to save time. He glanced toward Lily, then away. Then she screamed. The siren grew louder. One of the hells turned his head. County's coming. That snapped Ethan back into motion. He folded the paper with clumsy fingers and shoved it into his pocket. I have to go. Your face says otherwise, Rex said. I have to go anyway. He started toward the sidewalk before anyone could stop him. No one grabbed him. Maybe that was what made the next few minutes hurt so much. There was no dramatic obstacle, no fresh attack, no hand dragging him back. Just distance, traffic lights, and a system that did not care why he was late. By the time he reached the bus stop, his side ached from running. The electronic route board was dark. A strip of paper taped over the schedule read out of service. He stood there breathing hard, staring at the sign like it had personally betrayed him, then took off on foot. Downtown at that hour had already thinned out. Storefront gates were down. Office windows had gone black. The family services building sat at the far end of a block lined with bare winter trees and parking meters. Ethan could see the glass doors from half a block away. Locked. Inside, a fluorescent light still burned in the lobby. The fluorescent light behind the locked glass gave the whole lobby a sick, underwater glow. A printed notice had been taped crookedly to the inside door, something about office hours and emergency numbers, but the numbers were useless now. Ethan stood on the sidewalk with his chest still heaving from the run, one hand braced against the cold metal handle as if sheer force might open it. A black SUV rolled to the curb behind him so quietly he did not hear it until the headlights washed over the tree trunks and parking meters. Then came the low thunder of another engine, heavier, rougher, followed by 2 more. Motorcycles. The sound did not rise in a frantic rush. It came steady and controlled, which somehow felt worse. People in town said men like that could shut down a block just by deciding to stop on it. The engines died one by one. Silence dropped in hard. Ethan turned. The first thing he saw was height. The second was leather. The third was the kind of stillness that belonged to men who did not need to raise their voices to be obeyed. The riders spread out without seeming to hurry, boots hitting pavement with dull, certain thuds. Cuts hung heavy over sweatshirts and denim. Faces looked worn by weather, old fights, long roads. One of them held the man they had taken in the lot. The thief's hands zip-tied behind his back now, his mouth bloodied and his eyes wild. Then Rex stepped out from beside the SUV. Even before Ethan placed the face, fear moved through him on instinct alone. Rex was broad-shouldered and gray at the temples, with a hard-lined mouth and the kind of eyes that seemed to take inventory of every weakness in front of him. He wore no helmet now. Cold air caught in his dark hair. There was nothing flashy about him, nothing theatrical. That made him worse. He looked like a man who had spent years becoming the last problem anyone wanted. Ethan had heard the name. Everybody had. Rex did not ask who Ethan was. He looked first at the locked building, then at Ethan's shaking hands, then at the scrape on Ethan's cheek and the dirt ground into one knee of his jeans. The order of that glance felt deliberate, like pieces being arranged in his mind. "Where is she?" Rex asked. Not loud, not angry, flat. The rider holding the thief jerked him forward. "He says the other guy ran." Rex kept his eyes on Ethan. "I didn't ask him." The words landed like a steel bar dropped on concrete. For one awful second Ethan thought the question meant Lily, and that if he answered wrong something terrible would happen. His throat worked before sound came out. "She's okay," he said. "At the diner. With the waitress. I left because I had to get here before they closed." Rex's gaze narrowed, not from confusion but calculation. "You left Lily?" The shame of it hit Ethan instantly, even though he had done it for the only reason he could think of. "I thought she was safe with your people." One of the riders shifted, as if that answer might have been the wrong one. Another glance toward Rex, and then away. Rex took one step closer. "Why did you have to get here?" The building stood glowing behind Ethan, cruel in its silence. He swallowed and forced himself not to back up. "Tonight was my meeting," he said. "Family services. If I missed it, they said they'd move on. I ran here, but they locked up." Nobody spoke. The thief made a choking sound through split lips. Somewhere down the block, a traffic light clicked from green to yellow to red with no cars in sight. Rex's face did not soften. If anything, it grew harder in a different way, as if some private judgment had just shifted targets. "So you missed it," he said. Ethan nodded once. Because of Lily. The words were not a question, but Ethan answered anyway. She was screaming. That man grabbed her. I didn't think. The parking lot seemed to hold its breath after Ethan said it. The buzzing light over the clinic door hummed loud enough to feel cruel. A paper cup skittered along the curb, scraping over gravel before catching against a parking stop. The man on the ground coughed again, but nobody looked at him now. Rex studied Ethan with the stillness of somebody used to spotting lies before they were fully spoken. His broad shoulders blocked part of the clinic light, throwing a hard shadow across Ethan's face. There was blood drying at Ethan's mouth, dirt ground into one knee of his jeans, and one sneaker lace had come loose and dragged black through an oil stain. Nothing about him looked practiced. Nothing looked arranged for sympathy. How old are you? Rex asked. 11. Rex glanced at the locked office door, then back at Ethan. You know what tonight was? Ethan swallowed. His throat worked once. Yeah. And you still ran toward trouble. Lily had stopped crying hard enough to breathe normally, but her fingers were still twisted in the back of Rex's vest. The earlier panic had left a raw, frightened shine in her eyes. She looked at Ethan the way children looked at somebody who had stepped into a nightmare with them and made it stop. Ethan did not straighten up or try to seem brave. I wasn't trying to be stupid. A tiny, broken laugh came out of Lily before she could stop it. Rex heard it. So did Ethan. The corner of Ethan's face moved as if he might smile, but the thought died quickly. Rex took one slow step closer. Then tell me what you were trying to do. The question landed harder than the others. Ethan looked down at the cracked pavement, at a smashed cigarette but pressed into the tar, at anything but Rex's eyes. The answer should have been simple. It was not. She sounded scared, he said at last. Not fake scared. Real scared. His voice grew rougher as he forced himself on. The guy had his hand over her arm, and she was trying to pull away. I thought if he got her into the car, nobody would catch him in time. You know her? Ethan shook his head. You know me? Another shake. Then why risk it? That should have been where a favor came in. Or a bargain. Or one of the hard little survival tricks kids learned when the world kept failing them. Rex waited for that turn. He had seen it too many times not to expect it. A frightened person helped somebody stronger, then reached for the return with both hands. Money. A ride. Protection. A place to hide. Something. Instead, Ethan said, because she was little. The words were plain and almost embarrassingly simple. No speech. No pose. Just the truth laid down between them like something too honest to dress up. Rex's gaze sharpened. You missed your appointment because of that. You know there might not be another one. Ethan nodded once. Say it straight. For the first time, a flicker of resistance crossed Ethan's face. Not defiance. More like shame wrestling with dignity. I know. Rex did not let him off the hook. And I'd still do it. Silence spread out after that, colder than the air. Lily turned fully toward Ethan now. Even if you knew? Ethan finally looked up at her. She was probably close to his age, but tonight she seemed younger somehow, made small by fear and the oversized jacket someone had thrown around her shoulders. Yeah, he said. I'd still do it. Why? His split lip opened again when he answered. Because if nobody helps when it matters, then what's the point of grown-ups making meetings and papers and all that stuff? He blinked fast, angry at himself for sounding angry. Sorry. Rex's expression changed almost invisibly. The suspicion did not disappear, but it lost its edge. He had come over expecting to pull a story apart. The clinic door never opened. A minute earlier, the place had still looked possible. That was the cruel part. The fluorescent light behind the glass kept buzzing. The taped notice kept fluttering under the vent, and the rows of plastic chairs inside sat in neat silence, as if somebody might come back and fix everything. But after a while, possibility began to look like what it really was. A room no one was coming back to tonight. Cold leaked up through Ethan's worn sneakers from the blacktop. Lily had stopped crying, but she had not loosened her grip on Rex's jacket. Her small fingers were twisted deep into the denim at his side, like she needed to feel something solid to believe the night had not gone wrong all over again. Rex stepped closer to the door and rapped on the glass with the flat of his knuckles, harder this time. The sound went flat into the empty lobby. Nothing moved beyond the reflection of the parking lot lights. Then the deadbolt clicked from the inside. Not opening. Locking again. A woman in dark scrubs crossed the far end of the lobby with a purse over one shoulder and a stack of folders hugged to her chest. She saw the figures outside, hesitated, then came to the door without unlocking it. Her face looked tired in the green-white light, the face of somebody who had delivered bad news all day and had one more left. "I'm sorry," she said through the glass, raising her voice just enough. "We already closed the file." Ethan stared at her, not understanding for half a beat. Then he moved closer, one hand flattening against the cold door. "My meeting was today." The woman nodded once, not unkindly. "I know who you are." Something tightened in the air. Rex shifted his weight, but did not interrupt. Lily looked from the woman to Ethan, sensing the danger even if she could not name it. "I was here," Ethan said. "I came. I just got delayed." The woman's expression changed in that helpless way people had when they believed the rulebook mattered more than the person in front of them. The caseworker waited as long as she could. The family had a flight out in the morning. Once you failed to appear at the scheduled time and there was no verified contact, the placement was released. Released. The word hit harder than if she had said rejected. Ethan swallowed. "Can't you call them?" "We did what procedure allows." "Then do more." "I can't." Her voice stayed soft, which somehow made it worse. "There are deadlines, legal signatures, state timing requirements. The system can't reopen a same-day match after closure, especially after a missed final review." Missed final review. Closed file. Released placement. Each phrase landed like a stamp. Rex finally stepped up beside Ethan, broad shoulders filling part of the doorway. "Listen to me. The kid didn't blow this off. He kept your daughter from getting dragged into a van tonight. There were police there. There'll be a report." The woman looked at Lily first. Whatever she saw in the child's face made her pause. "I'm glad she's safe." "That isn't the point," Rex said. "It is to me," she said quietly. "But it won't change the paperwork." From the edge of the lot, red and blue lights flashed once across the clinic windows. A patrol car rolled in slow, tires crunching over grit. For 1/6 second Ethan looked almost hopeful, as if authority arriving late might still mean rescue. But the officer only stepped out with a clipboard and an apologetic posture. He recognized Rex, nodded at Lily, then looked at Ethan. "I came from the scene. Needed a statement to add to the incident report." Rex made a sound of disbelief. "You're kidding." The officer glanced at the locked clinic door and understood enough from the silence. "I'm sorry." Ethan let his hand fall from the glass. The officer continued, "Careful now. There were witnesses. Security footage from a gas station across the street caught part of it. What the boy said lines up." Cold air slid through the automatic doors each time someone entered the emergency lobby, carrying the smell of wet asphalt and gasoline inside. The police officer's words hung there for a beat, sharp and final. What Ethan said lines up. For the first time since they had reached the clinic, nobody looked at him like a problem to be sorted out. The shift was small on the surface. No applause. No sudden miracle. Lily was still hurt. The clinic door was still locked to them. Ethan still stood in shoes with thinning soles and a jacket too light for the hour. But the room had changed all the same. Suspicion had been replaced by something harder to carry. Debt. Rex turned his head toward Ethan slowly, as if reassessing the weight of someone he had misjudged. The harsh fluorescent light caught the scar near his jaw and deepened the lines beside his mouth. He looked less like a man trying to poke holes in a story now, and more like a father who had just been told the worst thing almost happened because a stranger chose not to walk away. The officer gave a brief nod toward the front desk, then stepped aside to answer a radio call crackling at his shoulder. That left the three of them in a pocket of humming silence. Lily sat wrapped in a hospital blanket on the molded plastic chair, pale but awake, one hand curled around the edge of the fabric. Her eyes kept returning to Ethan with the uncertain intensity children had when they were trying to understand something adults kept making complicated. She had already thanked him once in a voice thin from shock. This time she did not speak. She only looked. Rex crossed the tile floor in 2 deliberate steps. Ethan braced without meaning to. Adults in his life usually came close for one of 3 reasons: to move him along, to question him, or to tell him what he had done wrong. His shoulders tightened, and his chin dipped in preparation for another version of that old pattern. It did not come. Rex stopped in front of him, reached into the inside pocket of his cut, and pulled out a thick black wallet scarred from years of use. He peeled off a stack of bills and held them out. "Take it." Ethan stared at the cash but did not lift a hand. "I didn't do it for money." "I know that." Rex kept his arm extended. That's why I'm offering. The bills stayed between them, green and unreal under the fluorescent light. Enough to matter. Enough to feed somebody for a while. Enough to make turning it down look stupid. Ethan swallowed. I can't. Rex's eyes narrowed, not in anger this time, but in study. Can't or won't. Both. The answer landed harder than anything dramatic could have. It stripped the moment clean. No bargaining. No performance. Just a hungry kid refusing easy cash because he knew what it would make this feel like. Rex let out a breath through his nose and lowered the money. Then he did something stranger. He put the wallet away. That's not small, he said. Lily shifted in her chair. I told you. Rex glanced at her, and the iron in his face softened for half a second. When he looked back at Ethan, a decision had already formed. What happened tonight doesn't get settled with a handful of bills. His voice dropped lower, carrying a kind of certainty that made the nearby sounds seem to recede. You stepped in when grown men didn't. You took the hit that was headed for my girl's life. Men talk about honor all the time. Most of them don't know what it costs. You do. Ethan looked down at the scuffed floor, unsure where to put his hands. Praise sat on him awkwardly, like a coat made for someone else. Rex took one more step closer, close enough that Ethan could smell road dust, leather, and cold night air on him. So listen carefully, Rex said. The words landed with more weight than Ethan expected. Not because they were loud. Rex never raised his voice. It was the steadiness of them, the way they came from a man who had already measured the night, the damage, the blood on Lily's jacket, and the silence that had followed. Around them, the emergency lobby kept moving in broken pieces. A nurse pushed through with a rolling cart. A television mounted in the corner played a weather alert no one watched. Somewhere down the hall, a child cried once and then stopped. Rex looked at Ethan as if the room had emptied out and only one fact still mattered. You said nobody was coming for you, Rex said. I believe you. Ethan's throat tightened. He had said it earlier because it was true, and because the truth had come out before pride could stop it. No foster parent waiting. No relative running late. No one calling the front desk asking where he was. Just a missed meeting, a folded paper still in his pocket, and one decision that had burned the old plan to the ground. That doesn't stand anymore, Rex said. For a second Ethan did not understand him. Then motion started all at once. One of the angels peeled away from the wall near the vending machines and pulled out a phone. Another stepped outside, already talking into a headset under his beard. A third, broad-shouldered and gray at the temples, walked straight to the admissions window and set both hands on the counter with a calm that made the clerk sit up before he even spoke. No one shouted. No one threatened. That made it stranger, more serious. It was like watching a crew that had done hard things before and knew exactly where to place each man. Rex turned slightly, not away from Ethan, but toward the rest of them. I want everything clean by morning, he said. Legal bed. Safe roof. Clothes that fit. School transfer if needed. No gaps. The men moved faster. Ethan stared. Why? Rex brought his eyes back to him. Because the system had its chance tonight. That hit harder than the praise had. Across the lobby, a woman in county scrubs who had been speaking with the officer glanced over, confused by the sudden current running through the room. The officer crossed to meet her. He listened for 10 seconds, then nodded toward Rex. Whatever he said next changed her expression from guarded to uncertain. She came over with a clipboard hugged against her chest. I'm with after-hours placement, she said carefully. I was told the boy has no guardian available and missed an adoption review meeting. Missed. The word made Ethan feel the old drop in his stomach again. Before shame could close over him, Rex answered. He missed it because he kept Lily breathing until my people got there. The woman looked at Ethan then, really looked at him. At the torn sleeve. The grime on his jeans. The drying streak near his collar where someone else's blood had touched him. Her eyes softened, but bureaucracy still sat stiff in her posture. That may be, she said. But there are procedures. There are always procedures, Rex said. His tone never sharpened. Somehow that made the line stronger. From the entrance came another blast of cold air. 2 more angels walked in carrying things from their bikes and trucks, as if this had already become a mission. One had a paper bag from a 24-hour diner. The other carried a folded duffel and a sealed pack of socks and undershirts from a pharmacy down the road. They set everything on a row of plastic chairs without ceremony. Kid hasn't eaten, one of them said. Ethan had not realized how hungry he was until the smell of bacon, toast, and hot potatoes reached him. His stomach cramped so suddenly he had to press a hand against it. Lily's name was spoken from the hallway just then, and every muscle in Rex's body changed. He went to the treatment room doors at once. Rex stood at the treatment room doors, so still that for a second Ethan thought he had stopped breathing. Then the door opened, and a nurse stepped out with tired eyes and a blood-stained sleeve. "She's awake," she said. "She keeps asking for her dad." Rex moved before the sentence was fully finished. He stopped only long enough to look back once at Ethan. It was not the hard stare of a man weighing trouble. It was something far rarer, and Ethan did not know what to do with it. Gratitude from men like Rex looked almost frightening. The door shut behind him. The hallway quieted again, except for the hum of vending machines and the distant roll of a gurney somewhere deeper in the hospital. Ethan stayed by the plastic chairs with the food the Hells Angels had brought him, the paper bag growing warm against his knees. One of the Hells Angels lowered himself into the chair across from him. He was broad in the shoulders, gray at the temples, with rain still shining on one leather sleeve. He slid the bag closer with 2 fingers. "Eat," he said. Ethan opened the carton with clumsy hands. The first bite almost hurt going down. His body had been running on panic for so many hours that real food felt unreal. He ate too fast at first, then slowed when his stomach turned. Nobody laughed. Nobody told him to act decent or save some for later. They just sat there around him in a rough, uneven half circle, making the bright hospital hallway feel less exposed. For the first time all night, Ethan understood that nobody here was about to send him away. A little while later, Rex came back out. Something in him had changed. The fury that had driven him through the night was gone. In its place was a kind of dangerous clarity, the look of a man who had decided exactly what mattered and exactly what came next. "She's going to be okay," he said. The air left Ethan's chest in a shaky rush. He had not realized how tightly he had been holding himself together until that moment. His hand came up to cover his mouth, and his eyes burned. Rex saw it. He glanced at the untouched coffee beside Ethan, then at the thin pharmacy bag, the clean shirt, the 2 large undershirt folded on the chair, the whole sorry inventory of what the boy owned right now. "Come with me," Rex said. Ethan stiffened at once. Old fear moved faster than reason. He rose anyway. Rex did not lead him outside. He took him to a quieter family room at the end of the hall, one with dim lamps, 2 sofas, and a window blackened by the last of the night. The Hells Angels stayed back, giving them space. Rex shut the door. Ethan braced himself for questions he could not answer right, for forms, for rules, for the careful adult voice that always meant he was about to lose something. Instead, Rex leaned one hand on the back of a chair and said, "I know what today was supposed to be." Ethan looked down. "I know where you were headed before all this happened," Rex continued. "I know why you turned around." That made Ethan look up fast. "I didn't turn around because I wanted anything. I know." The room went quiet again. Rex was not guessing. He had already been told. By the officer. By the social worker. Maybe by Lily herself. However it had happened, the truth was here now, standing between them with nowhere to hide. Ethan had missed the one meeting that might have changed his life because he had stopped to save a girl he did not know. Rex's voice lowered. "You lost your shot yesterday because my daughter was in trouble." Ethan swallowed hard. "She would have died." Rex did not blink. "Yes." That one word broke something open in the room. Not with drama. Not with noise. Just with the clean force of a fact neither of them intended to soften. Ethan stared at the carpet.